Hi, I'm Whitney.
And I'm Camden. Welcome to Ghosts and Garnets, Murder in Idaho. I always want to go, murder! Or, murder, 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 murder! Murder!
I have to tell you, and I'm not a sappy gal, but this week we have gotten, I've gotten myself 3 direct messages from listeners. One today. It totally made my day. We read all of the stuff that you guys write on our pages and any messages you send. And it's really nice and really lovely when you guys tell us how much you're liking the show. And I just wanted to say thanks, man.
Thank you, man. Wait, you're getting direct messages personally?
Yeah, I am, yes.
Oh, well, that must be real fucking nice. I have received 0 direct messages just to me. Not a zilch. So if you feel bad for me, well, now's the time to reach out.
Well, you also did not get a bad review, and I did.
Well, that's true, but I just feel like that lady was salty and she didn't even know how to spell.
Well, she didn't know how to spell, and frankly, if you don't like what we have to say, you can turn it off. Nobody's making you listen to this.
Nobody's forcing you. I mean, we would love to force everyone, but
yes,
alas, we are not.
We are not everyone's cup of tea, and that is fine.
And also, we're not perfect.
No.
I mean, we're pretty damn close.
You know, it was interesting, though, of all of the things that she had to say that she did not enjoy about me, my filthy mouth was not one of them.
True enough.
And guys, I fully recognize I listened back to the Brian Kohberger probable cause affidavit, and I am fully aware that there was entirely too many Fs in that episode. Even I, after listening to it, went, oh. But that's not an episode that we edited.
Right. Or scripted.
No, it was not edited or scripted. And also for our Friday shows, for our Let's Get Intimate shows, we don't edit them. Those are live shows. So you guys get what our patrons get, which is...
Get a little sneak peek.
Unfiltered.
Right. And that one was so, spontaneous and, hey, this just happened, and we feel like everybody should be able to hear it. So,
yeah,
it was off the cuff.
Well, and it made me very angry.
Same.
I was very frustrated as I read through that. But
Same.
Anyway, I wanted to say thank you for everyone who loves the show and listens. It means so much to us, and it really does make a big difference to us when we hear from you guys. So,
and thank you guys for DMing Whitney and never DMing me. It's fine. I'm fine. Everything is fine. Moving on.
Hey, guy that sent me the borderline creeper message, maybe send Camden a message. Make her feel better.
Oh.
All right, guys. Today we are going to tell you a nutso murder story. This is out of Boise, and Camden and I have several ties to this story. One of which is that we were both ballerinas at Ballet Idaho.
And jazz dancers. So much jazz.
I'm pretty sure this was you. I did ballet through 8th grade. And I think the entirety of my 8th grade ballet career was spent being dropped off to ballet and then going to a very cute boy named Dan's house to hang out during ballet in our leotards. Is this something that happened with the two of us?
No. However, we did skip karate classes to hang out with a cute boy named Dan.
Oh,
did
Dan.
You forget that we were in karate?
I did, yes. And it was karate. Actually, I did skip ballet with someone else
'Twas not me, because I did not do ballet that long.
Maybe Robin.
Probably, you hoodlums.
Ballet Idaho is very much a part of this story. So the story we are telling you today is about the murder of the nicest lady. Her name was Wanda Kuzmichev. Her choreographer husband, who was a darling of billionaire philanthropist Esther Simplot, and a possible abduction by the KGB. Because why not?
Throw that in there, just like...
The story's got it all, folks. Here we go. During the Great Depression, a Cassia County teenage hog farmer with an 8th grade education developed a low-cost method for feeding hogs using wild horse meat and potatoes. When the market recovered, he sold his farm for a profit and got into the potato processing business. His name was J.R. Simplot, and by the time World War II came around, his company had become the largest shipper of fresh potatoes in the nation. In 1967, after developing a way to process and freeze cut potatoes, Simplot and McDonald's founder Ray Kroc agreed by handshake that the Simplot company would provide frozen French fries to the restaurant chain. By 1972, all the fries were frozen, guys. This led J.R. Simplot to become one of the richest men in the country. He built a giant tacky house on top of the biggest hill he could find in Boise, Idaho. And he and his wife, Esther, moved in and lorded over Boise, Idaho. Now, Esther was incredibly philanthropic. And over the years, she spent millions of dollars on developing and expanding the Boise arts community. Ballet Idaho was her passion. And in 1991, she was on the hunt for a new artistic director. Luckily for Esther, a recent immigrant from Kiev named Wanda Kuzmichev had just landed in Twin Falls with his 29-year-old wife, Valeria, and their young daughter. After auditioning for Esther in his very tight tights, she took one look at him dancing and said, quote, "That's my boy." No one bothered to check his references. Esther moved him. We're going to call him Ben, because when he got to America, he went by Ben, which is the Americanized, bastardized version of his name, which was Benjamin. So we're going to call him Ben. And she moved Ben and his family into a small cottage on the Simplot estate at the bottom of their great big hilltop kingdom.
Before I continue, when you started talking about his very tight tights,
yes,
it just automatically put into my brain The Labyrinth and David Bowie's very tight gray tights and black vest.
Yes.
Now, why they didn't switch those two colors for a children's show, I will never ever know.
I think the people who made The Labyrinth were not thinking of children when they made The Labyrinth.
Well,
those tights sort of prove it.
Those tights. Woo! All right, but I digress. All right, so a little background information on Ben. Ben was born on September 2nd, 1940 in Bok, which was a city in the former Russian Ukraine. At some point, he moved to Kiev, and when he was about 20 years old, he danced with Shevchenko Academic Theater from 1960 to 1980. He was a business manager for the Philharmonic Society from 1980 to 1981, and a ballet instructor and choreographer at the Choreographic College from 1980 to 1990. This is all according to previous news accounts, but the truth of his resume has been questioned in the years since. By the time he left Kiev, he had been married 3 times and had fathered 2 children. His third wife, Valeria, and he shared a 5-year-old daughter. 3 of them, plus Ben and Valeria's parents, all sought asylum in 1990, going through Germany before landing in the U.S. According to reports, they sought asylum because they were, quote, causing problems, and it was getting them noticed by the KGB. Ben told several people about an incident where he said he'd been kidnapped in the middle of the night by agents associated with the KGB secret police, stripped naked, forced into a wooden box that then was nailed shut, and he was left in a snowy field to die. In another version, he said it wasn't the KGB who had abducted him, but a rival ballet official. So, evil ballerinas.
Ballet is serious shit in the USSR. Okay.
Have you seen Black Swan, all right? Ilaria relayed a story that shortly after she and Ben had reported a coworker for mismanagement, Ben disappeared for 10 days, later telling her that he'd been held captive in a carriage and fed only water and apples. She said for months they lived in fear before escaping to America and landing in Twin Falls, Idaho.
Yep.
It's a lot.
Wild times. You know, you wonder if, like, the KGB, if it's part of the schooling, this is what you do in the winter, folks. You're going to get a coffin, and you're going to nail a guy in it. And then you're going to leave him in a snowy field so he can escape. Now, he never tells anybody how he escapes the nailed shut wooden box and survives in the Russian winter, naked as a JB, hopping through the snow.
Popping through the snow. His stories often lead him to be trapped inside of things, and it's all a little suspicious to me.
Yes. Agreed. Well, despite these wild stories, he settled in well at Ballet, Idaho. In August of 1993, he and his wife divorced amicably. He and Esther were reported to be the very best of friends, and the next few years were quiet. But on November 6th, 1994, Ben disappeared from Boise for almost a month. Now, this was during all of the big preparations for Ballet Idaho's annual performance of the Nutcracker, and the artistic director had disappeared, gone off the map. No one knew where he was. He returned just in time for opening night, and at that point his colleagues are looking at him a little bit sketch. Betty Sino, who, fun fact, is great friends with my mother, and I grew up with her. She was my glamorous auntie. She was the executive director of Ballet Idaho at this time, and she said, quote, after his disappearance and some of the stories surrounding it that seemed very, very hard to believe, I think we all took a second look at what really did happen in Russia. His credibility seemed to disappear. So after that, and some very lackluster reviews for the Nutcracker production, he was dismissed from his position. He told friends that he had been in Mexico and California during his disappearance trying to escape a man who looked like Watergate figure H.R. Haldeman. The man, quote, told him to leave Boise immediately or he and his family would be killed. Rather than go back to Twin Falls, though, Kuzmichev took a job at a local factory. It was here that he would meet Wanda Kuzmichev. And I don't know. I know the basics about Watergate. I don't know who H.R. Haldeman is.
Well, same. But here's the thing. Why did this guy want to kill him? Like, why was he hiding from this guy in his story?
I don't know. I don't have any idea.
It's not a real story.
But it seems like a rando name to pick out of a hat, you know? Like
it does, but maybe that's easier to, or not as easy to fact check. Like, it's not like it was Nixon.
All right.
Wanda Faye Kolsky was born on March 10th, 1934, and grew up in a small farming town that is now Kuna, Idaho. She attended school throughout the 9th grade, then dropped out to marry Richard Cowger in the fall of 1949. She was 15, and he was 17. They had 4 sons and a daughter within a 10-year period before divorcing. She raised the children mostly on her own, working waitressing jobs. Photos from that time show her done up to the nines, smiling and glamorous. She was particularly close to her daughter, Tanya Marie. Wanda, Tanya, and Wanda's mother, Julia, were all devout Jehovah's Witnesses, and by all accounts were inseparable. Wanda bought a mobile home in West Boise, and Tanya would visit often and occasionally stayed with her. Wanda painted the trailer powder blue with white trim, and plastic flowers and a pair of plastic ducks lined the walkway leading to the front door. Sounds very cute. She loved to read and insisted her kids had impeccable manners. She rarely dated, and it was never anything serious. In September of 1991, Tanya was killed in a car accident right outside of Ontario, Oregon. Then, Wanda met Ben.
So she was like grieving when she met this cuckoo bird. Yeah, she was like grieving the loss of her daughter, which is so sad.
After an incredibly short courtship, they decided to marry in May of 1995. And Wanda's family did not meet him until their wedding day, and her sister-in-law described him as having cold, hard eyes. They moved into a trailer, and he left his factory job for a security guard position at Hewlett-Packard, and Wanda went to work cleaning the Idaho State Bar office 3 nights a week. Kuzmichev frequently assisted her in this job. On September 15th, 1995, Kuzmichev and Wanda had a picnic at Lucky Peak. Neighbors heard them come home that afternoon and heard Wanda laughing. She was scheduled to work that evening. She usually arrived to work around 5:30 p.m. on Fridays, and Kuzmichev said that she went to work. Around 11:30 p.m., Kuzmichev made a 911 call to report that Wanda had not returned from work after she had left the night before. He apparently gave several different accounts of the time she had left for work, from as early as 4 p.m. to as late as 9 p.m. He also told the police that he did not know where she worked or how to contact her employer or family. Wanda's family organized several efforts to canvass the places where she might be. Kuzmichev was uninvolved in these efforts, and at one point stated that such efforts were, quote, too late. He never called the police to ask about the investigation.
He also does some interesting things. When he originally moves to the U.S. and they're sort of put in Twin Falls, he and his then wife go through English lessons at the college there in town. And then he works for several years in the U.S. with English-speaking people at Valley, Idaho. So he clearly has passable English. He can get around. But he does use this sort of I don't understand English.
Of course he does.
Yeah, when there's conversations that he doesn't want to have. He's, I don't understand,
Bozo.
He is a bozo. I think we can all see where this is going.
Well, it's kind of what our podcast is about.
It's our whole job, Whitney. On September 21st, 1995, a jogger found a nude, partially decomposed body in the foothills on the edge of Boise on Bogus Basin Road, across the street from the home of Esther Simplot. The body had a plastic grocery bag over its head, and a brown plastic garbage bag with a yellow drawstring secured in part with duct tape was wrapped around her feet. The body was eventually identified as Wanda through the use of dental records. It was difficult to determine her cause of death due to decomposition, but the pathologist ultimately opined that the cause was asphyxiation, probably by strangulation or suffocation. Now remember, she had been in the Boise desert for almost 10 days in the summer, late summer. So up until this point, Wanda's car, which had been missing, was discovered in the Walmart parking lot near her house on the same day that her body was discovered. The car had not been there a day or so previously, so it had been put there recently. Now, Wanda always kept a toolbox and a bunch of religious literature that had to do with Jehovah's Witnessing.
You are a lot to handle tonight.
You know, her not paraphernalia.
Okay, that's drugs.
It was her paperwork that she showed people. Like,
her literature to help spread the word.
Thank you. Yes. You've rescued me again. Yes. Anyway, she kept a toolbox and this box of religious literature that she liked to hand out, always in the trunk of her car. And when they found her car, it was not in the trunk of her car, but they did find it in the driveway of her mobile home, leaning up against the side of the house. There was also traces of Wanda's blood in the trunk of the car. There were 2 of Ben's fingerprints on the plastic bag wrapped around her legs. There was a fragment of a fingerprint, too small to identify, found on the duct tape where it had been torn. So it was underneath, it was on the sticky side of the duct tape. Also, Kuzmichev's fingerprints were found on the trunk lid, and one of his prints was found on the gear shift lever in such a way as to indicate that he was the last person to drive the vehicle. Now, I don't think that that's super strong evidence, frankly.
No.
Maybe the plastic bag, but my fingerprints are all over the duct tape in my house.
Not the sticky part, because that's the first time you use it.
Shh.
Twit.
His fingerprints were on the trunk of her car. It was the only car they had. His fingerprints are going to be on the car.
Right.
So I feel like that's neither here nor there. I mean, he's sketchy enough, guys. You guys don't have to reach for stuff like fingerprints on the trunk of the car.
I do. I mean, I just want to reiterate that your fingerprints are not going to be on the sticky part of the duct tape, Whitney. Okay?
But that fingerprint was too small to identify. They did not identify it as his.
One of them.
There was just a fingerprint.
But there were, fingerprints on the plastic bag is what I'm thinking.
Yes.
That they were able to identify.
Correct.
All right. So despite all of these fingerprints and partial fingerprints and circumstantial evidence, there was not enough to arrest Kuzmichev. The police contacted the FBI to contact Russian authorities asking about any criminal history on him, but the Russians declined to offer any information upon him, and the case was stalled. Several months later, on January 4th, 1996, Kuzmichev called the lead detective and said he was coming into the station. He said he wanted to go to Russia to see his son. Detective Smith worried that because the U.S. didn't have an extradition treaty with Russia, that they wouldn't be able to get Kuzmichev back if he left. So they leaned hard on him in an interrogation. He eventually would ask for a lawyer, and the police said only killers need lawyers. They lied to him about evidence and generally acted like unprofessional dicks. He did not confess. They arrested him so he couldn't leave the country. After the arrest, the police circulated flyers with Kuzmichev's photograph to stores in the area, asking for information as to whether he had purchased items that were used in the murder.
Like the garbage bags and the duct tape. So forth. Yeah.
So forth and so on.
Mm-hmm.
A Wehrmart is Wehrmart?
You know, I was concerned that I was wrong and that it was Walmart, and it's not. It's Wehrmart. So I'm assuming it's like maybe like a Family Dollar or like.
Is it like a discount Walmart? Is it the discount Walmart or the bougie Walmart?
Can you discount a Walmart?
Well, it's Wehrmart. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I also don't know. So, but it is Wehrmart. I did double check because I didn't want it to be Walmart and I was saying it wrong the whole time.
Well, anyway, the Wehrmart employee, Teresa Watson, contacted police on January 16th, 1996, after the police had distributed a photograph flyer of Kuzmichev to several local retail stores, including Wehrmart. Watson explained that she did not make an immediate connection, but after looking at the flyer for several days, recalled the transaction. The flyer from which she identified Kuzmichev had a photo of him and stated that there was a murder investigation, specifically asking if duct tape and or trash bags had been sold to the man in the photo on Friday, September 15th, 1995, through Wednesday, September 20th, 1995. The flyer also stated that the man spoke with a heavy Russian accent. Yeah, I think that would be hard to forget, actually. Watson later identified Kuzmichev at a 6-person lineup. She had not provided the police with a physical description prior to the lineup, beyond identifying his photograph on the flyer. She characterized his demeanor as unfriendly.
Yeah. And I feel like the police could have done a cleaner job on this, frankly. And I think it was really more up to this guy's nonsensical confidence that they caught him rather than anything else. Yeah. The fact that he went to the police station to tell him he wanted to go to Russia instead of just going to Russia.
Oh, it's super...
It's weird.
I feel like something I would do.
It's what happens when you're a rule follower, Camden.
I know. I want you to like me. Follow your rules. Ugh.
So they've arrested him because they don't want him to flee, right? But the prosecution didn't really have a motive. But they did have some time to come up with one, as Kuzmichev spent the next year in jail because he couldn't make bail. While he was there, though, he played a lot of chess. A fellow inmate in the Ada County Jail told police that Kuzmichev made several incriminating statements to him while they played chess. One of those statements followed a newscast regarding the identification of Kuzmichev by the Wehrmacht employee. According to the informant, Kuzmichev said that he killed Wanda after an argument in which Wanda said she wouldn't travel to Russia with him. It was a motive. Not a great motive, but a motive nonetheless. It was a shitty motive. It's a terrible motive.
Maybe one of the worst motives I've ever heard.
During the trial, the prosecution relied on the Wehrmacht employee, the jailhouse snitch, and the physical evidence. The defense argued it was all circumstantial evidence. They dismissed the fingerprint evidence as trash because, of course, his prints were everywhere. They lived together. On February 6th, 1997, the case went to the jury. And on February 8th, the jury convicted Ben Kuzmichev of second-degree murder and sentenced him to life imprisonment with a mandatory minimum term of 21 years. Kuzmichev denied his involvement completely and totally for the rest of his life. He did a big interview series with an Emmy-winning local reporter whose name I cannot remember. But this guy got like an exclusive, and they did like an interview series. And Kuzmichev said in his interview that the Jehovah's Witnesses had killed Wanda because she had married him and he wouldn't convert.
He's good at making up stories.
I mean,
they're
so,
not
Ben.
great stories, but
No, they're terrible stories.
he keeps going for it.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So he, in 2005, got diagnosed with cancer. And his family made a bid to get him a compassionate release so he wouldn't have to die in prison. And Wanda's family was like, fuck that, and threw a fit, which, same. And he died in prison in November 2006 after his battle with cancer, never admitting that he had killed Wanda. Now, a spokesman for Esther Simplot said she considered Kuzmichev, quote, a capable artistic director during this the period he spent there, but that she had no comment on his arrest.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And at the time of Wanda's death, she had 35 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Her son, Tim, said of his mom, she couldn't have an enemy. She wouldn't allow an enemy.
Hmm.
I know.
That's really sad.
It is very sad. This nice lady who was grieving her daughter and got caught up with this Russian possible ballerina. Is that a boy term for is there a boy term for ballerina? Is it just ballet dancer?
I think they're just all ballerinas. I just said ballerinas. Winnie, ballerinas are ballerinas and ballaboys are ballerinas. Oh my God. Ballawiener. I am a child, people. I am a child.
My stomach hurts.
Do you want to know what really chaps my hide? Compassionate releases.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't. I don't care. And I was watching this documentary series on Netflix called I Am a Killer, and the very first episode...
I've watched all of them.
The one that they call the Boogeyman.
Yes.
And he's that old man.
Yes.
And he killed, he said he was a pimp.
And I think he's faking it, being in that wheelchair.
Yeah, it was the whole thing, but what I could not get over was that when his attorney was interviewed, he kept saying, he's a really old man, and he's literally no danger to society anymore. I don't give a shit. He's not in prison solely because he's a danger to society, which, of course, he was. But he is in prison as punishment for murdering somebody. It just, I don't.
No, I agree.
No compassion was shown to their victims, so screw you, and I am really going on a tangent here.
That's all right. It gave me time to Google male ballerina, and what
are they called?
A danseur.
Well, I'm going to stick with ballawiener.
Ballawiener it is.
We should have t-shirts made. Every episode, I feel like, has one quote that could be on a t-shirt. All right.
Okay, so, Idaho. In 2009, J.R. Simplot gifted his 7,100 square foot mansion on the hill to the state of Idaho to be the governor's mansion. By 2013, the state tried to give it back. See, the guys that had been elected during that time to be governor did not want to live on a house on a hill. And as the state discovered, the house was a fucking money pit. Just to maintain the 37-acre grounds cost $80,000 a year. And the list goes on. Electricity, $30,000. Janitors to clean up after the rare occasion that they use the house for some kind of event, $12,000 for janitors to clean the house for one event. Altogether, the yearly maintenance tab was $177,400 for a house no one lived in that sat empty on a hill. And we'll post a picture of the house. But it's literally a house on top of a giant hill that is roly-poly and covered in grass. And it's like 37 acres worth of grass.
Do you remember when we would go ice blocking down it?
Yes.
That was fun.
It was
fun.
And
terrifying.
Yes. And the family had the house torn down in 2016 after the government gave it back to them.
What's there now? Anything?
Nothing. I think the flagpole is still there at the top of the hill.
Is the flag still there?
Yeah. There's a flag there still. It's fucking enormous. It's like bigger than a house, the flag. And you can hear it on really windy days, like a mile away.
I remember
it's so big. And it makes so much noise. And people still ice block on it and sled on it in the winter and stuff. So it's still there. And somebody's maintaining all of that grass.
Well,
because it always is cut.
Money.
Anyway, nobody wanted that house. Actually, I don't even think that JR and Esther lived in it that long because they bought one of those penthouses in the hotel downtown that has the ugly art feature on the front of it.
Oh,
when it was
right.
first
I know
built.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they lived there, I think, because he was old. He was old ass in 2009.
He was old 20 years ago.
So that is that.
I do have a joke.
Let's hear it.
It is absolutely zero to do with anything we've talked about today. But
That's
I don't
all right.
remember jokes, so when I do, I like
Yeah.
to tell them all the time.
Do it.
Why is the chicken so funny?
Why?
Because
You guys, I wish you could see her face when she does these sounds because it's the greatest thing.
well, you gotta get into it. You can't just half-ass it. And I expect you to tell Poppy and Russ and Tucker that joke. And do it well.
Poppy's at that age where all of the jokes are knock-knock jokes and none of them are funny and none of them make any sense at all.
Does she like sushi?
No, she loves rice, but she's very picky as an eater. Although she likes weird stuff. Like she won't eat ketchup at all, but she loves yellow mustard and she loves pesto. Her favorite thing in the world is I make like a pesto shrimp with bow tie pasta and she will eat the shit out of it. Like she would eat a pound and this is sauteed shrimp. But she won't eat like chicken unless it's in nugget form. I mean, she's a very
Well, because I have a
picky
joke
eater.
about sushi.
Oh, well, tell me the sushi joke.
What does the sushi say to the bee?
To the bee?
Yeah.
Like a bee buzz? Like a buzz bee?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. What?
Wasabi! Like, what's up?
I
But it's wasabi.
Yeah.
Wasabi! I'm not quitting my day job anytime soon. Okay, anywho, that's the story of the murder of Wanda Kuzmichev and her possible ballerina husband. We hope you have enjoyed hanging out with us today. It's been a wild ride.
It has been a wild ride today. Well, if you did enjoy, then please give us a follow wherever you listen to this podcast. And if you want to leave a nice review, then you could. Anywhere you listen to your podcast. And if you would like to get some extra monthly bonus content, including an extra full-length episode, you can become a patron of the show. There's a link in the show notes. It says support the show. It will take you right to Patreon, and you can check out all of the stuff that you get when you subscribe to the show. So take a look at that. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, you can reach us at ghostsandgarnets@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys.
Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.